I felt judged by traditional human design interpretations. I felt that they were telling me that I wasn't able to live in alignment with my human design if I didn't know the mechanics. Welcome, everyone, to the Human Design in Real Life podcast. I am your host, Wynd, with our co-host, Karen Kartika.
Yes, you said it perfect.
And today we are talking about why I fell in love with the gates and why I hope you do too. Because human design needs a facelift. Understanding your human design could use a facelift. So in honor of everyone that has gone before us, I definitely appreciate all the information. I wouldn't have understood the information had it not been for the lineage and everyone that has gone before us. But like with everything, I feel that there is room for innovation and room for new understandings, and the reasoning why making human design more accessible for everyone is where I come into play in offering what I have according to my design as well, what I have to offer to the world too.
This is telling the story of Wynn as she created her new amazing tools that, like what she said, is going to upgrade or giving human design an up. What did you say that
I said
again?
A facelift.
Yes, a facelift. It's what you're going to see and what we're going to be bringing to you for the next 1 or 2 months are going to be things that you probably have not heard in the teachings or, what people have been talking about human design. So I hope you're going to enjoy today's episode, because this is why I even got involved with Wynn, is when she's starting to tell the story of the gates. And I'm honored to be able to be here to distill some of the download that she received, as she's amazing at looking at patterns and noticing, what's missing in our understanding of human design.
And also, I want to say the reason why Karen seems to be an excellent fit for distilling the patterns, because it's also part of her human design of explanation, the cross of explanation, and also being able to have the answers, distilling information into a new format, having breakthroughs of insight, and having solid values and principles that I also align with and that we meld really well together.
Yeah. It's been an amazing process. I got to learn a lot. Awesome. All right, let's do this. Ta-da! Human design in real life. Why you fell in love with the gates. Take it away, Wynn. So what really started this whole journey?
So when I looked at my chart for the first time, I felt this wave of, oh God, I have to learn this now too. And it was really overwhelming. And I was hemming and hawing about the definitive book of human design. I'm like, okay, well, it's obviously a textbook. It's $50. It's it's like some of these textbooks are like, wow. All right. Well, it's $50. Should I get it? Should I not get it? Well, I have some space during Christmas break in between, Christmas and New Year. So why don't I just sit down with the book and I'll buy it. Let's just see what happens. And it was in that act of sitting with the book. And I remember I literally woke up one morning and I saw it, or I understood what these other parts, I understood what the decimals meant. I understood where to find that in the book. I understood I saw the flow. I saw the chart pattern and the flow. Then it became, okay, well, what do all these individual pieces mean? And I didn't have the language yet to understand it. I didn't know what they were because I just saw that this is how the flow would go. This is the flow. And then actually, since I was home, for Christmas, like with my biological family, I started to talk to cousins and I got their birth charts and I started to look at patterns. And then I started to say, well, can you see this about yourself? Or because I wanted to validate, I wanted to see if I could see it in real life. Hence the podcast. Like how I could say, like, I'm like, well, does this apply? Does this apply to you? Like, is this really how it is? I wanted to test it. And that's essentially what Ra Uru Hu did once he got the download. He took the information, got a bunch of people to collaborate with him and validating the patterns. And he went through like his own scientific process. Well, I ended up going through that in my own way, just talking to people around me, seeing how people were interpreting the information, but it was still so complex and jargony when I was reading the book, and it still felt a lot like a big riddle. It felt like the comprehension. It was still people using a lot of big words. There's a lot of what people in like the grand scheme of humanity. And this is just a statistic I've heard, is that people want to have a reading level of an 8th grade. People want to be able to comprehend things on an 8th grade reading level. I mean, which is, it just makes it a little bit more accessible. Karen, you're a writer. I mean, it just seems like that just seems to be a little bit more palatable. And then if you want to go down the academic route, you have those options. There are people that write academically. But in order to reach the masses, which is also a part of my human design profile, is being able to communicate universal truths, my fifth line for the masses, it was part of my wanting to make this information, because we have all the textbooks, all the deep knowledge is there.
So with the great stories, right, with a great journey, and I'm hearing like how you're just got attracted with human design and you're starting to see all the patterns and you absorb this information so quickly. But really, what that turning point that makes you like, my God, there's still something missing here that I'm not grasping from all the things like the books and maybe teachers that you follow and things like that, that make you really like, explore that fifth line of your bringing this to the mass, that you feel like, that little seeds of thing that makes you like, I got to do this in different way.
Well, looking at my own design made me feel disheartened. When I saw and reading the stuff about myself, or the things, I felt, it was this is your design. I'm super conditioned. All of my white open centers, all of my, this is how it is. Oh, I have a channel of struggle and judgment and my cross of upheaval. And my white open centers, I'm not living in alignment with my design. And they don't even count the fact that, I was living according to my strategy of waiting for the invitation for 6 years prior to even knowing that this existed. So I had intuited how to live the invitation for 6 years before I even knew this. That's how I was supposed to be or designed to live. So you can understand your human design intuitively. And I've actually seen that. I've seen that out in the world. I felt judged by traditional human design interpretations. I felt judged in that that I wasn't I felt that they were telling me that I wasn't able to intuit my design and live in alignment with my human design if I didn't know the mechanics. And Ra, bless his soul, on the other side, now the late Ra Uru Hu, he did have the belief that people were not ready for this. And he also, I felt judged by some of the things that he did say, but it's, he wasn't able to change his perspective because he died even before 2012. He left the body, he left his body and left a legacy of his teachings. And while I feel that so much has changed humanity's consciousness wise from 2012 and beyond that Ra never had the opportunity to change what he had actually said. So I almost want to take the opportunity to take what he said and maybe even expand upon it and make it a little bit more all-inclusive and to make it so that empowering other people to be like, yes, Ra was in a particular mind frame that he wasn't able to see how humanity has grown from 2012 to now. I mean, I have seen exponentially humanity's consciousness expanding, which was not available to Ra. He wasn't able to see it at the time. It wasn't even available. If you look at the early 2010s, from 2000 to 2010, humanity was still limited. And then, social media, and then allowing people to not have a middle, like direct peer-to-peer information transmissions. I feel like that has made a huge impact on how we perceive reality, what's able to be shared, how we share our consciousness, and the information that it's making it more peer-to-peer, and there's no middleman, so that people can inform their consciousness levels and make their own choices about how they perceive themselves and the world around them.
And is this why you're, focus on, I think a lot of your work, which I find is a little different than other people, is that you're honing in more on the gates,
yes,
on the and seeing it as a bigger picture instead of just, oh yeah, that's how I learned in the beginning. I was like, I'm my energy type. I'm a manifesting generator. Thus I have to behave a certain way, which sometimes it is kind of like defeating, because as a manifesting generator, I am a little different than any other man gen. So I feel like as I'm learning more about the gates and its position within my chart with the different signs, like the sun, the earth, the Venus, and Mercury and Mars and all of that, which it combines my love of astrology as well. It really opened up a different world. So I want to hear what's your aha moment on this.
So I also really like to think in pictures, broad perspective, feelings and energy. I have a design background, a graphic design background. And I think I always like to tell people, what did you learn? What was like the biggest benefit from going to art school and learning graphic design? I'm like, well, it really helped me bridge the gap between left and right brain functioning. I was able to really take something abstract and move it through the left brain. And so it was this nice, like abstract right brain coupled with left brain logic patterning. And then that's how I was able to see the patterns within myself and with others, and then understanding the archetypes. And I always loved working backwards. I always loved seeing the whole picture and then dissecting and then trying to find the puzzle pieces. And then once I got into the gates, I could see the puzzle pieces merged with, because the gates are the I Ching. The I Ching are the gates. The gates are the gene keys by Richard Rudd. Gene keys are the gates. The I Ching, Richard. They're the same thing interpreted and using language in a new way.
Your exploration, and this is also highlighting your specific gates, like your strength, your gifts, that.
Yeah. Considering that I have gate 17, which is far sight, and then being able to see, it's just another way of seeing patterns. And then my Venus also, okay. So what I value in my relations with other people, I have 17 and 5. 5 is the universal natural timing, also seeing patterns. Gate 17, also thinking in pictures and logical explanation. That's 3 times. And then gate 18, which is correction, sharing, pattern upgrades. These are all patterning upgrades for, bringing greater joy to the collective. and I have that 5 times. So it's like, I'm just here to upgrade. And this is my way of living my design and what I'm having to share with the world. And honestly, before I got into human design and just become obsessed with finding these patterns, I was growing medical cannabis. And it's like I went from graphic design, and I did that for a while, to then growing medical cannabis, CBD, that whole that whole realm, and having a open and undefined G center, and having no gates familiar, and that I could literally make hairpin turns. But the reasoning why I found myself in a love of, growing medical cannabis was definitely in line with my values of natural cycles and timing and patterns and like divine timing. I couldn't force anything. The plant's going to be done when the plant's going to be done. I have no control over it. So, I can make it, but I have to go along with the natural cycle. So I was starting to see why I made decisions intuitively, why I was naturally drawn to certain aspects. And then now taking what I learned from the medical cannabis and then understanding that whole saga of my life, and then incorporating it now into where I'm going in my trajectory. And then really it's like, I want to live and embody my human design. I mean, Ra always said that if you can embody your human design, then, you can change the world. And I'm like, all right, well, let me just try and see what happens. Because this is all an experiment. And that's also what Ra would say, is that it's all part of the experiment.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like part of your experiment is it comes to you almost like naturally, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you hear some teaching, but a lot of it is that you're also seeing the pattern. And I like the word experiment because you're validating it within yourself and others, so that you can also start to see. And I think this is your gift, is to see the human evolution. That's why you mentioned about something about the timing is off with what Ra was saying. He's missing from 2012 to now, the human evolutions that he couldn't see back then that we can see now.
Yeah.
So I feel like you are really embodying already. And I feel this as well, like for everyone, even before you're getting into human design, you already embody a lot of part of you. It's just that maybe it's sometimes because of the conditioning from the outside, you listen to the other people more than really believing in yourself. And that's, I feel like, what I'm also experiencing from working with you, Win, is that when we're learning about this gate, we're starting to have the whole picture of who we are, the understanding of the energy that we have, and when it's out of, when it's being conditioned, or when it's off, like what we call the shadows, and when we're actually in our power. And I feel like as I am writing it, I empower myself because of the aha moment that I got of like, oh, so I'm right all this time. I validate myself. And I feel like with the tools that you're creating, it helps me empowering myself. And I want to also hear your own experience from like how you're evolving in that, with your own tools and your own understanding about human design.
Yeah. So I part of my Mercury placement is the gate of inquiry and questioning, and what I like to think about. And one of the things that I loved about the gates is that I ended up making pictures to go along with the gates, because a picture says 1,000 words and energy holds 1,000 pictures. So there's a certain energy in an archetype, and I love capturing these images. And so when I was able to make the pictures, now that when I grab it and I see the image, and I can turn it into an oracle deck, because part of my experience is I play with my deck every day to make sure it works. And then some days, especially the days when I really need some sort of like clarity or insight as to how I'm feeling. And that helps me figure out like, oh, and then this just happened the other day. I was way up in my head way too much. I was too much in my head. I had the gate of reasoning show up. And then I read the book. I read our book. I go and consult the book. And then it tells me, get out of your head, get into the body, do breath work, do anything to start move the energy, just get into your body, do something meditative that moves your hands or fingers or moves something. And then, so I did that. I consulted our book. I consulted the book and then I ended up doing it. And then I immediately, it shifted my energy for the day. Now, and so it doesn't always necessarily need to be, sometimes I'll just be like, okay, what's my intuitive message for today? Today, I pulled the gate of power. Oh, expansive focus. So that was gate 9, expansive focus, where I'm looking and seeing it the whole picture, and it's a machine, and I understand the well-oiled machine. We're making this podcast today. I understand the well-oiled machine. I see the whole picture. I know all the parts and pieces. I am also using power and, going along with, is it power versus force? Even though I don't have gate 34 activated in my chart, today I'm utilizing that energy because we have the entire gates. We have all the gates. It's just, you have access to all these gifts. If they're not if they're not lit up or glowing in your chart, or they're not lit up, just an inconsistent energy. But that doesn't mean that you don't have access to them. You always have access to these energies.
Yeah. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So for anyone, this is what we'll be launching, when we'll be launching. In the next few months, there will be a lot of tools that all of you can use to understand human design even deeper, but in a fun and practical way. And we make it so that it's something like what Wynd just shared. So like at any day, you feel like, oh, what's the energy for today? What can I work on? And you just pick the card and you can actually work through the card. And like what Wynd was sharing, that you could really get a breakthrough just within a few minutes of really, working through the cards and the books. And I've also noticed that, like what Wynd has said as well, is that we often give ourselves the excuse of like, oh, but I don't have this. I have to wait to respond and all that. But but we all carry all the energy as a whole being, as a human, that, yeah, maybe it's not always there, but when we can actually be aware of it and tune into that energy, you can actually be exponentially, what's the word for it? Like, your potential can raise really fast. And I think that's what I really like about what Wynd is creating here. The whole system is the self-empowerment. On your hands, we're giving it to you on your hands, because I feel like everybody can do this. If I can do it, if Wynd can do it, everybody can do it, because we're not that like guru.
No, you are your own guru. That is like the premise of I don't do don't give your power away to me. Don't put me on a pedestal. Don't give your power away. Keep your power for yourself, because that way then we become our own self-sustaining Taurus field energy, and then you cultivate and empower yourself. And that is basically like the value and the premise and the principle that I stand forth. You are your own guru. This is just a tool for you to step more in your own guruhood.
Yes. And I think I also fell in love with the way that Wynd is falling in love with human design. And that's why we're collaborating, because we understand a lot of the big misconceptions out there. And Wynd, take it away. I think I like.
So the biggest misconception, and I'll tell you this, when you're first starting, you first look at your chart, and I get clients and people asking for readings all the time, being like, okay, this feels like really in depth. This feels so much, there's so much involved here and it's really complicated. I'm like, it's really actually quite simple. And if it's really simple. It's chakras and centers. Centers are chakras, chakras are centers. Gates are the I Ching hexagrams, gates are aligned with your planetary placements. Channels connect, gates connect, and then they make your type, and that gives you your strategy. I mean, like that's really like the most basic, so that's why I love the gates, because then you can start to understand why you're lit up the way that you are, like why you have that ability, why you have those themes. And also, humans love to complicate things. They make that they just, it makes them feel like they have a sense of mental, I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's the ego or if it's the like making it harder, because then if it's hard work, then it feels like I actually accomplished something. It's like, no, let's just make it really simple. It's really simple. It's not difficult. And if I think, but the only thing that's difficult is just waiting in time to understand and playing with it and just allowing yourself to not have the instant gratification. I think that's like the most, people want to understand it immediately, or people want to understand their design. And I'm like, okay, look, think about your human design like an advent calendar, but instead of 1 month, it's ad infinitum, right? You just, every day you learn new things about yourself. It's always like a purpose of, it's self-discovery. Every day you read something, or you learn something about yourself, or you connect a new dot, and then it's like opening a door in the advent calendar, and you get a new treat, or like you get a new insight. You get a little piece of chocolate and be like, oh, that's why I do that. Oh, that's why that I have those as my values. Oh, that's why I feel like doing this thing. And I also encourage people. I mean, this is me 5 years down into this, and I've gone in and out of it too. Like I've turned it off, I've turned it on, I've, gotten overwhelmed. But I can't help but the fact that I keep going back to this, because I want, so I'm like, if someone hasn't already done it, well, okay, well, I guess it's my turn. I've also heard other people say that, well, I can do it better. Like they saw things within the market. They're like, well, I can do that, and I can do it just as good, if not add a little flavor that is not already out there. And this is where I've seen my gifts expand upon. I mean, back in the day, I used to consider myself like a personal growth junkie. Like anything, I know, like anything that has to do with, personal self-development, like give it to me, because, I was really working on my own shadows. But then you get to a point where then you've done all the shadow work. You've made the necessary tweaks. You change, when your shadows come up, and then you can pivot and reframe and change your mindset. And you don't always have to be doing shadow work. And I, even though like I love it, Deb, what's her name? The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. Deb.
I only know Deborah Harkness, but she's a novelist.
Deborah Harkness. No, what's Deb?
Everybody knows who Deborah Harkness is. Hey, we're big fans of some vampires and witch and all that.
Deborah, wait, that name sounds familiar too. Deborah Harkness. Hold on.
Shout out for all the big vampire fans out there.
Oh, yeah, okay. A Discovery of Witches.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Oh, in the book. I never read the books, but I watched the series and I love it. Maybe I should read the books. Debbie Ford, Dark Side of the Light Chasers. Okay.
Oh my God, yes. She was the original talking about shadows. Yes, I remember. She went through a lot too. I think she defeated cancer. I don't know whether she actually got remission, like her cancer totally gone or came back. I kind of like, I think she's no longer with us. Is that true?
Yeah, she died 2013. Okay, wow. Okay. Whoa, Debbie Ford. Yeah. So that was, wow, she died 2013. Okay, I didn't know that. Wow. Okay. Debbie Ford. Yeah, but she was the one that really started me on shadow work. But the one thing that I felt was missing from her work was that where's the transformation? Like, yeah, it's good to look at your shadows and own your inner bitch. If that's a part of your we all have our shadow aspects, like own it, right? Like own those parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
The one thing that I really like about what we're doing, and then Karen, you helped me to take our shadows, and that's what we've written in the book, taking our shadows, being able to look at them, identify them, seeing the pattern, and then what you need to do to transition it into the expanded light activated states of consciousness. So it's like we have solutions. And we're not just like focusing on the dark. No, it's just like, look at the dark, shine the light, see your pattern within the gates, see the pattern, and then you can move beyond it.
Yeah. Because I think I'm a personal junkie as well. And I've been on both sides, all the woo-woo stuff and just looking at the light, and all the dark stuff that just focusing on the shadow. But really, what changed my life is when I'm actually actively doing the work of like, okay, I'm committed of staying in the light, but also acknowledging there's a shadow part of me that sometimes will pull me down. And it's okay, because when that pulls me down, it also helped me to refocus myself on the light. And it's always a constant work. And what we're putting in the books is like, what little things that you can day in and day out so that you can transition easily. Because sometimes it's as easy as like, you know what, just go for a walk, go to the beach, enjoy yourself, find something that's joyful to you, or talk to somebody whom you will never know might just open a door for you when intuitively you're being called toward this person, or you're being called toward attending some, I don't know, an event that you didn't even really want to go, but your intuition is really pulling you there. Because, we all have certain gates lit up in ourselves that if you don't listen to this like little drive of this gates, I hate to say drive because then people that, oh, do I have to feel it as if it's like pulling us somewhere? It's more of like, it can be words, it can be feelings, it could be convictions, whatever it is within yourself. We're peppering inside of the book of little things like that you can start to be aware of, whether it's like your little voice or the body sensations, so that you can, continue honing in there and really walk through all the energy or the gates, really walk the talk, what you are meant to be here. So you can't really like, but I'm not that. No. We have the tools for you to start owning who you are, because I like what Wynn said. We need to start empowering ourselves, because we can no longer just giving our power to certain people to say, go this way or go that way. I mean, the last few years of our living, we've been listening to too many people that we kind of trust blindly on certain way of doing things that may not be healthy or good for you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, 1,000%. Listening to your own intuition. They're actually even on TikTok or just social media, people I can't tell you how many times I've seen people trust your intuition, follow what your intuition is asking for you today. Trust yourself, self-empowering yourself to follow the quantum magical aspects of you. Don't always do what your mind, learn to differentiate between what your mind is telling you and then what your body and your intuition, because your intuition literally comes from within you. Like it bubbles up from within you. And even if you in human design, you have the splenic center is the body. Even if you don't have it, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You still have intuition within you. Even if you look at your human design chart and it says, I don't have anything, a way of telling that I have intuition. That is just, don't be limited, and don't be limited by what you read or have read online or listen to somebody. Check in with yourself. Yeah. How does that resonate with you? How can you use that information, transform it inside of yourself, reword it, understand it within like your own filter of self-exploration, and reinterpret it in a way that works for you.
And I think the decks that you're creating works very well in this, because when you're sort of kind of like, is that my intuitions? What's the message here? You can literally just like having a tangible things on your hand. So like, okay, let me touch this and see what's really happening. Because most of the time you're getting the validation that you need. Just like what, Wynn shared earlier, like, oh, I'm feeling this. Okay, what is this saying? And she opened a deck and literally that's exactly what she needs to do, or she needs to be present to. So I love the idea of this deck, because we're human. We need something tangible. We can't just learning concept wise, because the way that we can integrate things is when we feel it in the body, when we see it, when we can taste it. So.
Yeah. And then also I like to talk about this thing called earth amnesia, where we forget. It doesn't matter how much you've learned. It doesn't how much you've taught someone else to do something. We go on in life, and then something about just being here and embodied, there's this veil of forgetfulness that we forget about ourselves. And then you have these reminders to help you along. It's another tool to help you remember in earth amnesia. Just like here we are, these soul bodies incarnating in human form, and then we forget.
That's exactly why we love human design, because it gives us that remembrance and structure almost as well, right? That this human body actually have this. Oh, okay, I remember now. I have this gate, this gift, this strength. And if I'm not, if I'm not really careful, the shadows coming in. Okay, great. I remember being who I am again in this human form. So I think that's why we love human design. So I love human design for that. Because you're right. I'm sometimes like, what is this?
Like, what is it? Well, and then considering how my previous path and trajectory, I was growing plants, to now I have an online, I'm now doing social media, and just I'm literally obsessed with this information. I'm just obsessed with it. I wake up thinking about it. I go to sleep thinking about it. It is my special interest. And nothing has ever captivated me like this in a way that, and it's kept me it's kept me interested and intrigued, and has given me a sense of purpose. Now, looking and understanding myself and understanding my chart, now I'm like, wow, okay, I can start to see where I'm able to, like what I'm able to offer the world. And then utilizing my design, it took a little bit more of a challenge for me in my design, and like, how can I utilize this to help other people? And also appreciating therapy, and like how I love the holistic psychologist. I love how, she's taking therapy in a holistic perspective and able to expand upon it. This is utilizing consciousness and how we can map our consciousness and see where our consciousness levels are, so that we can see if we're in a contracted or an expanded state. And it's not so much therapy, but it's more of just understanding yourself so that you can navigate your life in a way that is expanded instead of contracted. And it's almost, therapy can be really like, we look at trauma. Yes. Okay. I understand that human design, being trauma informed and understanding that the way that people, in order to navigate your shadows, like that's another thing that I love that you inserted into the book, Karen, is like, if you're having challenges, it's almost like this is a guidepost and a guidance book to then segue into, this is what I would recommend looking into deeper with like a trained professional that can go into healing this particular area, or like helping you put a language to something that maybe was once indescribable about how you feel about yourself. So it's almost like a bit like this information is our building blocks to help you to discover and put a language to describing your inner world. And then not because obviously like there's so much that goes on with people's history and then their human design and being able to iron out internal kinks and heal, and then finding the people to heal themselves so that then they can become more into the expanded states of consciousness, but then finding like those core wounds. We even got to a friend of ours who had a core wound within commitment. And Karen, you actually got to help with that. And then, so we got to work through like these were core beliefs. These were core beliefs. And then like we sent her the chapter of the book on the commitment, Gate 29, if anybody's interested, for listeners. And then she was able to really feel good about now her current commitments and her choices.
Wonderful.
And it was making that, and then not knowing what it was and talking it through, and then finding this is one of the core beliefs, my dear. Like, this is a core belief of yours. A nugget. There's a nugget in there. And then it starts to unravel once you get to like the core belief.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
That's why we love human design. And this is why I fell in love with Wynn's work and supporting her in her creations. Really honored with, being able to participate here, being your co-host, being your writer. And we're going to be, unfolding a lot of what we talk about today, just like with case studies, going in depth on the gates itself, even shows you how we're using the tools that we have today. In further episodes. It's going to be fun. I think what we're looking forward to with this project is that we're going to be sharing fun stuff, because learning should not be hard.
No.
Should not be complicated.
No.
I mean, this is already within you. You just have to remember, you just have to utilize it. You just have to overcome whatever crap that, prevent you from living your life fully. So we're going to come back in further episodes. Before we close, anything else would you like to share? Do you want to share the lineage, or should we close?
Yeah. So just so that everyone can get a clear understanding of the lineage and this new trajectory or this new information. So I had studied. I actually was familiar with the I Ching prior to this. I used to do I Ching readings with coins, and then had a good friend of mine who did yarrow stalks. You did it with the sticks, and there was like the divination tool. I forget now, because this was in the 2005, 2006 when I was doing yarrow stock I Ching readings. That was fun. Astrology and understanding astrology. I wasn't too familiar with the Kabbalah. But now it just makes more sense with the human design information. And then when I got the definitive book of human design, I've bought several lectures, transcripts, books, teacher manuals from IHDS. I saw what they were teaching, and I was part of the thing about IHDS, I appreciate their approach. However, I do not agree with it entirely. So that's why I was like, that's part of my correction. Gate 18 upgrading. I disagree. I respectfully disagree. And I feel like there's something else that can be expanded upon. And then the Richard Rudd Gene Keys, read the entire Gene Keys book, the 518 pages or something, 500 plus pages, read it word for word. Love Richard, totally love it. If you've ever read Richard's work, maybe you know. I love him. He's great. He's amazing. Love Richard. Very academic college level. I wanted to make it more digestible. And also, if you've ever read any of the Dr. David R. Hawkins and his levels of consciousness, map of consciousness. If you ever read any of his books, also very academic, very dry, very, very just matter of fact, college level PhD, right? Like that's Dr. David R. Hawkins. And then taking all that information and distilling it in such a way that I want to utilize my fifth line profile of taking universalized concepts, universal symbols, and making them accessible for the masses so that everyone can feel empowered with understanding their human design.
Voila.
Yeah. So just clarity. It's like just making it an 8th grade reading level.
Yeah.
And self-discovery.
PhD all the way down to something that everyone can understand and enjoy.
Yeah. And transform their lives with, because it really is, it's all about the transformation. I mean, transforming, like taking these little nuggets within the advent calendar of your human design chart and then uncovering and opening up these little trinkets and gems inside of yourself and paving and making new neural networks and brain patterns that open up your consciousness levels, which is, I think, is essentially what Dr. Hawkins wanted. He's also the late Dr. Hawkins. Richard Rudd is he's still with us, still doing his thing. Definitely check out Gene Keys. I will plug him and his work because he's amazing. And just, he's like another way of understanding yourself. Just reading what the different interpretations, I highly encourage that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you, Karen, for being an excellent guide and question hosting, filling in your own parts and pieces and being your man gen self to help bring this energy to the throat chakra. Definitely appreciate all that.
Thank you all. It's such a lovely time being here, and watch out for the next episode. It's coming soon. Thank you. Aloha. Love you.